Hey Josephine, so in your last video you talked about polyrhythms, and polyrhythms are a really cool concept. I actually first got introduced to polyrhythms and things like it in the blues, but I want to make a quick distinction here, and I've got to thank Mike Legenthal for a very, or Mike the Girl as she's more commonly known, for a recent blog post that was actually really pertinent to this. She posted about polyrhythms and how polyrhythms are doing different rhythms with different parts of your body. What you're talking about is called layering, doing different things with different parts of your body, but essentially in the same rhythm. It's actually a really common difference of vocabulary and a distinction that we're not often very specific about. So I appreciate the opportunity to talk about it. If you want to read that post that she wrote, it's www.mikethegirl.com/blog. Highly recommend it, but I'm going to let her do that. I'm going to talk about layering in the blues, because like I said, that's where I first got introduced to it. And I think that probably the best example, and again I'm going to have to cite my sources here, Laura Wood teaches a move that's called the shake and bake. And you take two different movements. You take a shoulder, I can't remember, this is not a shimmy, this is a shake. So you're shaking with your shoulders, and so that's one thing, you'll do that in rhythm with the music. Shake, 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 shake. And then you will do this dip and turn thing, which is a lot like, kind of like fishtails, but not quite. And so you're down and up, and down and up, and then when you put the two together, you've layered and you've created a new movement. So it's something that's really really common in blues dancing. You'll see it a lot there. I will probably talk more about it in a future lesson. I want to do another nerdy one today, and what I want to talk about is the topology of the swing out. Topology basically means we're talking about the geometric patterns and the spatial relationships of what's going on in the dance, and it really helped me a lot when I was first learning to dance to think about the swing out in this way. And specifically to learn that Lindy Hop is technically a slotted dance. Now, when I say Lindy Hop is a slotted dance, you know, West Coast Swing is a slotted dance as well, and they are a lot more strict about the slot than we are. We deviate from the slot all the time, and it's fine. But I think that thinking about Lindy Hop as having a slotted feel to begin with can help to combat a lot of the basic problems that you'll get, especially when you're first learning how to dance. Things like getting that rotational feel to the dance, starting to go in circles, which will make you dizzy very quickly. And I think that it gives a really nice structure to the creation of the tension at both ends of the swing out. So that's one of the reasons that I wanted to talk about it. And I actually have a whiteboard with me today because I like to draw diagrams. So what I'm talking about, I'm not going to go into all the details of every little ounce of the swing out, especially talking about the details of what's going on in the upper body and the connection. What I'm going to talk about is I'm basically giving the key points, the keyframes, if you're familiar with the idea from computer animation. I'm talking about the mile markers and the shapes that you need to take at each one of these points. And I'm going to divide it up basically into pairs of counts, right? So if we've got 8 counts in a move, in the 8-count swing out, then we're talking about 4 sets of 2 counts. So obviously the first one is the rock step, and the rock step is important. And so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to draw myself a slot. It's a beautiful slot. A slot, right? So when we start the dance, I'm going to use red for the leads, and I swear I know my colors. I'm going to use blue for the leads and red for the follows because I'm a traditionalist. So you start out, and your lead starts out not quite at the very back of the swing out, but somewhere right around there. And your follow is going to be facing him, probably at the end of her slot, right? So let's get some directions on this. You're facing one another, right? Make sense? So the lead is about to take a rock step, and he's going to go backward, and the follow is going to go forward. Now, one thing so I'm going to break this up first. Let's talk about the leads. Leads, There's two schools of thought on the first step of the swing out. You can either stretch on one and send her backward into a rock step that mirrors yours, or you can bring her forward on one and take her in the same direction that you're going. You need to be really clear about which one you're doing, right? The easiest one is probably to just maintain your current frame and to bring her straight forward. That's what we teach a lot of the beginners, because it's a consistent movement. You want her to come forward, so you bring her forward. I personally find that stretching on that first count creates more extension and creates more power and more stretch that I like to use later on in the swing out. So I tend to prefer that one. Know which one you're doing and give a clear signal as to which one you're doing, or else you're going to have a bad time and your follow is going to have a hard time following you, right? But the gist, the key thing about, so that's my own little soapbox, right? But here's the thing. When you do your rock step, you go straight back and then you go forward, right? It looks like this. The lead comes back and then he steps forward. You'll notice though that when I say you go forward, you've stepped a little bit to the side. Why is that? You step to the side because it's your dadgum responsibility to get out of the way. The follow is staying in the slot. And if you don't get out of the way, one of two things is going to happen. Either your follow, like a good follow, is going to come straight forward and you're going to have a collision, or you're going to have a sugar push, right? But that's intentional. Or your follow, trying to compensate for your ineptitude, is going to go to the side and go out of the way. And all of a sudden, you're not in a slotted dance anymore. You're creating a circle at this other end. And that is the problem that leads to dizziness. Okay? So leads, back, forward, that's your rock step. And you are facing forward and probably a little bit to the side, because you should already be starting to catch her at the end of that rock step. Now, as for the follows, you are going to come straight forward. Now, obviously you're going to go where your lead leads you, but your lead should be leading you straight forward. And you should end up right about where he was, and you should be starting to turn. Okay? So, straight forward, right? Forward and forward. Now, if he leads, to go back to that thing about the rock step, if he leads you in a stretch, right? And the key thing, so that lead is going to come from his hand, right? You're going to feel it in that connection between you. He's either going to stretch away or he's going to maintain his frame and bring you forward, right? Be attentive to which one he's using. We should be able to, leads should be able to compensate for that, but do be attentive, because if he's using one or the other, he should have a reason for why he's doing one or the other, right? But either way, you are going straight forward for rock step. Quarter of the way there, that's the first two counts. So we've done our rock step, we're to the next two counts, 3 and 4, which is the first triple step. This is where we're starting out, right? You should be about next to each other. Your lead is facing away from where he first started, but he's starting to turn a little bit into the slot. The follow is staying in the slot, but she's starting to turn around as well in order to face the lead. Now, this is leads, you should already be catching your follow at this point. That is not the focus of this video, as I said, but be aware that you should already be starting to catch her. And your sole job at this point is to triple into the slot and catch her in a linear fashion, right? So, if I want to diagram that, I'm going to come around and I'm going to come about to where she is. I'm going to triple step my way into that slot and be facing her. So I'm facing her at this point. Follows, at this point, you are still in the slot. You've just moved forward a little bit and are facing him, right? So let me go back to using these big ol' X's that are easier to see. This is where you are, and you're facing one another. Here's the thing, where is your momentum going, right? Leads, your momentum needs to be going back, away from her, follows, your momentum needs to be going away from him because you are building stretch in order to send her back out to the other end of the slot in the next half of the swing out. Very important that this be a linear stretch. Otherwise, as I said, you're going to start going in circles. If your momentum goes to the side, you're going to create a rotational movement. Leads, if you get too much momentum going to the side, you're going to create a rotation, right? Can you see how that will create a rotation? Think about the midpoint in between you. You're going to create a rotation and you're going to get circular and you're going to get dizzy. Don't do this, right? So that is the first triple step, counts 3 and 4. You end up facing one another with your momentum. Let me use a different color. Pink and purple. Your momentum is going away from one another, right? Linear. All right, so we're done with counts 3 and 4. This is basically where we are. You're facing one another, follow has moved to the opposite end of the slot, lead is here facing him, and your momentum is going away from one another, stretching in order to create that next movement. Leads, where do you need to go next? Right, counts 5 and 6. You need to be getting, first of all, out of the slot so that you can be out of her way. But at the same time, you need to be going backward in order to give her the lead to go down the slot. So if you have a component along the slot and you have a component out of the slot, you're basically going to be stepping back a little bit and out of the slot. Now here's the important thing, right? This component is very brief. You isolate from her the component going out of the slot because you don't want her going out of the slot. The only part of this that you lead for her is the part going down the slot, right? I know that this is getting a little complicated, but it's important. You need to know where you're sending her versus where you're going yourself and separate the two. Because otherwise it's going to be really confusing for her and you're going to end up with a crummy swing out. Okay, so first step is get out of the slot and go back. Second step is get back in the slot because when the follow comes forward, she's going to be passing you. You're going to go out of the slot and back into out of the slot and back into the slot in order to get back in front of her and face off. Follows. He's going to lead you forward and you are going to go straight forward down the slot, right? Now as you go down there, you might turn or you might not. It just depends on which variation of the swing out that he's leading. And this is where a lot of variations occur. So your baseline needs to be simple. You are going forward, forward. Now by the end of this movement, you are here, follows, and leads. You are here, and you are facing one another, right? So the last triple step, which I'm going to go over in a second, is I don't even need to go over it in any great detail. All you're going to do is stretch from there. You triple away from each other and build tension for the next movement. Okay? So leads, you're going to triple just a hair backward, but mostly building tension. Follows, you're going to triple back to the end of that slot. And this is where you're going to add any of your variations, things like swivels and stuff like that. And then you're ready for your next movement. Key thing here, again, be linear, right? Leads, your tension needs to be building straight back and away in the direction with you're about to rock step. Follows, your tension needs to be going directly away from him, staying in the slot. I've danced with a couple follows who, for whatever reason, triple sideways. And what this does is it rotates the entire swing out this way and actually makes it really hard for me to be aware of where the follow is going and maintain floorcraft, right? If I'm dancing in a crowded dance floor and I'm anticipating this slot, then I'm going to, and there might be somebody dancing with a slot here and a slot here. If I send her here and all of a sudden my swing out starts going this way, I have to start reining her in and being worried about not hitting the other couple that I wasn't expecting to. So my preference is that this tension at the end be directly linear and going back to the back of the slot. Okay? So that's the topology of the swing out, right? And I don't know if that helps everybody, but it helped me a lot. Thinking about kind of the zones and where I need to be at each point in that 8 count. So that I can kind of check myself and stop and say, all right, this is 5 and 6. Am I where I need to be? Am I in the right places? Am I keeping the follow and giving her a clear and clearly delineating where is the slot and where she ought to be? So, thanks for nerding out with me about that.